So our two speakers today are Riccardo Mangione from Cineca. Riccardo obtained his master's degree in theoretical physics at the University of Camerino with a thesis on quantum computing. He then moved to the computer science department of the University of Verona for his PhD, where he worked on quantum machine learning. In the summer of 2018, he was selected for the USRA Quantum Academy that gave him the opportunity to be a NASA intern working on quantum annealing applications. In 2019 at Cineca, Riccardo was granted a scholarship on quantum computing and quantum annealers, and currently he is a quantum computing researcher at Cineca's Quantum Computing Lab. Our second speaker is Kevin Matto. Kevin received a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering of Computer Systems in 2018 from Politecnica di Milano. And since then, he is a Master's in Science student in Computer Science and Engineering at the same university. Kevin has been an intern at TU Wien, Vienna Scientific Cluster, working on hybrid programming for multi-GPU clusters, and his research interests span from data analysis to high-performance computing, quantum computing, and their industrial applications. Also joining us today, and we'll kick this off, is Daniele Ottaviani. Daniele is the quantum computing team coordinator at Cineca, and also Professor Gianluca Palermo, who will say a few words as well. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Daniele to get us started.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Daniele Ottaviani. I am the coordinator of the Quantum Computing Lab at Cineca. First of all, I want to thank you, everybody, for being here. And I want also to thank the friends of the Wave for this wonderful opportunity to present our work that is the result of collaboration between us, Cineca, and the Polytechnic of Milan. Cineca, for those who don't know, is the Italian National Supercomputing Center. We have been dealing with high-performance computing for more than 50 years right now. And for about 3 years, we have also begun to explore the field of quantum computing. Our friendship with the Wave was born at the beginning of our journey, that is in 2018. What my colleague will present today is neither the first nor, I hope, the last job we will do together. Recent years, we have been able to see with our eyes the great versatility of the Wave quantum annealers, and we think that this versatility combined with a great ease of use will make them suitable for both scientific research and for solving industrial problems. With this webinar, we want to demonstrate that quantum annealing techniques can be successfully adapted even to very complex problems, not only to simple, relatively simple combination optimization problems, such as the problem of molecular unfolding, that which will be dealt with in detail by my colleagues. We at Cineca strongly believe in the effectiveness of the Wave quantum annealers, and for this reason, starting from this year, we have entered into a commercial agreement with the Wave that will allow us to distribute calculation hours on quantum annealers for free to Italian universities and research centers. If you want to know more about this part, you can contact me in my mail that is here. And yes, and thanks for your attention. And now I leave the floor to Professor Gianluca Palermo, say something about the project. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Daniele. Hi, everyone. So I'm Gianluca Palermo. I will say some few words about the context of the project that has been carried out mainly by Riccardo and Kevin. So the context of what we are going to see later by Kevin and Riccardo is part of a larger project that we are doing related to in silico virtual screening. In silico virtual screening is a phase of a very early phase of the drug discovery process that involves the computations to select among molecules that are within a database, those molecules that can be active against a certain target or a family of target. As an example, the virus protein. The importance of in silico virtual screening is when you want to screen a small set of molecules as the drugs that are already available on the market or in clinical trial, but it is even more important when you want to screen a very huge set of molecules, as it happens when you are facing the problem of de novo drug design. So where the order of where the dimension of the database that you have in input is in the order of several billions of ligands. Under the leadership of Dompe Farmaceutici, my group at Politecnico di Milano and Cineca, we are contributing to the Escalate platform. The Escalate platform, that means Exascale Smart Platform Against Pathogen, is a computational platform designed for the task of in silico virtual screening and dedicated to addressing the needs to properly respond to a pandemic crisis as the one that we are facing worldwide in these days. Indeed, within a European project called Escalate for COVID, where in the name there is exactly the name of the platform, well, we are trying to adopt this Escalate platform to find a therapeutic solution against the coronavirus. So we are trying to find a drug, either considering the phase of drug repurposing, so trying to see if there is an already existing drugs that have an effect against the SARS-CoV-2, but also considering a huge database of virtually available compounds, completely new, never seen before. So what we try to do with the support of D-Wave, and I can say from my group, with the huge support of in collaboration of the quantum team of Cineca, we try to bring one phase of the workflow of in silico virtual screening using the quantum annealer. So now I can let the stage to Ricardo and Kevin to give you more insight about the specific topic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Mato, and today Ricardo Mengoni and me will present our project, our work about molecule unfolding with quantum annealing. So, Ricardo, if you could, thanks a lot. So, as Gianluca just said, the in silico approach to drug discovery is a multi-tiered process and a pipeline that encompasses several computational techniques with the aim of screening billions and billions of molecules to forward to the later stages of experiments. One technique is molecular docking, which is the approach used to simulate the interactions on atomic level of a compound called the ligand inside a protein binding site, in order to highlight the biochemical reactions between them, or from a strictly geometrical point of view, it's a method to calculate the preferred position and shape of one molecule to a second one when they are bound to each other. So the evaluation of each molecule on a pharmacophoric feature or a set of pharmacophoric features is very computationally expensive. So approaching the problem from a geometrical point of view, it's much more easier and efficient. With this project, we are just dealing with the shape, the study of the shape of the molecules, and not the spatial location of the molecules. As now I will explain, the molecular docking is divided in 3 phases, which is the ligand expansion, the initial placement, and the shape refinement. The ligand expansion is the first phase, where we are taking the representation of a molecule in a mol2 file, and where we are identifying the rotatable bonds of this molecule. Then we are maximizing the internal distances inside this molecule. Then there is the initial placement, where we are decomposing the molecule in fragments. We are defining a first shape, and then thanks to some rigid roto-translations, we are taking this molecule inside the pocket of the virus's protein, for example. Then there is a shape refinement phase, where we are using the rotatable bonds to modify the shape and match the protein's pocket. And this phase is driven by docking score, which has to be maximized. Today we will deal only with the ligand expansion, yeah, that is connected only with the study of the shape. Why is this phase so important? Because first of all, this phase isn't actually really part of the molecular docking, and it takes as long as the docking itself. Problems arise because the initial position of the molecule is chosen by a tool a priori. The tool is called Smile2 3D, and this initial pose or shape is useless because it's not connected to any criteria. So we can call this shape just a shape bias in geometrical terms. This phase is very important because all the later stages will depend on the quality of this stage and also the final outcomes of the docking. So let's talk about our interpretation of the molecules. The ligand is a flexible set of atoms, and furthermore, we can say that it's a set of chemical bonds or edges at a fixed length, where a pair of consecutive bonds are set at a determined angle. A subset of these bonds is called a rotatable bond. The rotatable bonds, or torsionals, are those bonds that are splitting the molecule in two non-empty disjointed fragments when virtually removed. So here you can see that the rotatable bond is splitting the molecule in a left fragment and right fragment. So when we define these fragments, we can consequently rotate one of these fragments according to a discrete angle, and the rotation of one fragment to the other is completely independent. And in order to model these rotations, we have to assign some variables to the angles with which we are rotating these parts of the molecule. Every angle is determined by a theta I, and the set of all these assignments will be called the conformation of the molecule. The final objective, I'm sorry, could you go just 1 second? Yeah, thanks a lot. So the final objective is to find the unfolded configuration that maximizes the molecular volume, or equivalently that maximizes the internal distances between the fragments. Okay, so each torsion can be mathematically modeled by a rotation matrix. On the left side, you can see that when we have just one rotatable bond, we just have one rotation matrix. But in the case two atoms are connected by a path that contains more rotatable bonds, the rotation matrix will be just the multiplication in order of these rotational matrices. Okay, so here I'm just pointing out a few characteristics of the database that we're dealing with our project. On the left side, you can see that the molecules have some characteristics. We took two out of all the possible characteristics, and we went just for the simplest ones, like the number of atoms and number of fragments. And we saw that the most widespread molecules are those with 40 and 50, or from 40 to 50 atoms, and from 10 to 20 fragments. The fragments are an upper bound of the number of rotatable bonds. More or less, the number of rotatable bonds in a molecule are the number of fragments divided by 2. And this is a lot. This is very important because this can tell us how powerful can be our method. how many molecules we can actually solve. On the right side, you can see a plot where there are 118 molecules ordered by increasing volume. And you can see that there is a positive correlation between the volume and the number of atoms and number of fragments. So we proceed by virtually now dividing the graph of the substance into fragments. The starting point is to select all the possible dimensions of the shape space by iteratively picking out the rotatable bonds. Afterwards, we must calculate the betweenness centrality of each atom. This attribute allows us to define an ordering of the atoms by centrality within the graph of the chemical substance. The betweenness centrality is calculated for each atom V as the sum of the ratios between the number of possible paths between an atom S and T, and the shortest path crossing V, divided by the number of all the existing shortest paths between an atom S and an atom T. Okay. Then each fragment is identified as a set of atoms influenced by the same set of rotatable bonds, which we call the Rotatable's influence set. The influence set is the intersection of the set of rotatable bonds and the edges of the shortest paths from a generic atom to the central atom. All the atoms belonging to the same fragment are then mapped to a path consisting of the edges in their influence set, and a composite rotational matrix will be created according to these rotatable bonds. We introduced a few simplifications. The most trivial ones that we put in the pre-processing phase was just to remove the terminal hydrogens, which does not influence the total internal distances when rotated. And we didn't count in the rotatable bonds the double and the mid bonds for chemical reasons. Okay, here I will tell you about the alternative algorithms that we used to quantum annealing, just to perform some comparisons. And here you have random search or random optimization, which belongs to the family of the probabilistic algorithms that are used usually for hyperparameter optimization in machine learning, for example. It substitutes the exhaustive enumeration of all the possible combinations by picking up randomly from a uniform distribution and the points of the solution space, and these candidates are tested in the cost function. The pro of this method is adaptability to discrete settings, but also to other types of spaces, although you have to add some techniques and some constraints to your work. A big strength of this method is the high parallelization and extendability, to Bayesian techniques, or you can use some particular probability distributions that may come from your data. In practice, what we also did, this algorithm can be applied on smaller subdomains that will have the same number of dimensions of the original solution space, where for a fixed time, processes will work in an embarrassingly parallel mode. They will take out the maximum point for each subdomain, and in the end, the loop will filter out the maximum. This other algorithm is a greedy algorithm. This is an algorithm inspired. This is an algorithm inspired from the original, let's say, Ligand Expansion. The algorithm in this case is derived from a mathematical method called dynamic programming, and it means tackling a problem by dividing the decision process in intermediate steps over time in a recursive manner. In fact, the word dynamic means time, denotes the time varying aspect of the algorithm, and programming means that there is an order inside the algorithm. This model cannot always be applied, but if it's possible, then you can tell that the optimal solution to an instance of your problem contains all the optimal solutions to all the sub-problems. So GeoDoc, in our case, this GeoDoc-inspired algorithm makes a decision locally at each rotatable bond. It does not lead to an optimal solution for a good, let's say, a majority of the time, but it can give a very good approximation in a very reasonable time. So let's see how it works. A little example. We made two modes, let's say. One mode is when we are rotating just one rotatable at a time. So you can see GeoDoc is rotating θ1 for all the possible combinations, and for each combination, it's measuring the improvement. And then we are doing the same for the second rotatable while fixing the first one, and we are measuring all the improvements, and we're doing the same iteratively for all the bonds. Then we can also run it in a batch mode where we are trying all the combinations 2 by 2, or 3 plus 1, or all the 4 at once. In our code, in our project, we tried to see what was the improvement and what were the benefits of trying all these solutions on our molecules up to a batch of 4 rotatable bonds at a time. So I think I'm done, and I will leave you to Ricardo, and he will explain you the rest of the project. So Ricardo, please. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for introducing the background and the classical algorithm that we used. Okay, let's now go deeper into the combinatorial optimization formulation of the molecular unfolding problem. The starting point is our molecule. It is convenient to identify a conformation of the molecule with m torsion by a torsion vector like this one, θ1 up to θm, where each torsion theta can assume values, discrete values in the interval 0 to pi. Again, let's state again the objective. The objective is to rotate the torsion angles in such a way to maximize the molecular volume. In mathematical terms, what does it mean? It means we want to find the unfolded torsion configuration that maximizes the sum of the square distances between the fragments inside the molecule. So the equation shown here. The distance between fragments is defined in this way. So it's basically the difference, the vector difference between the A0 that identifies the initial position of fragment A inside the molecule, and this other vector B0 that is the rotated position of fragment B with respect to the fragment A. R in general is a matrix that depends on all those angles, on all those torsionals that belong to the shortest path connecting A0 connecting fragment A to fragment B inside the molecule. So in order to construct, let's say, the binary formulation, binary optimization formula for this kind of problem, we have to introduce a discretization. And we decided to discretize the torsion angles. Okay, we have m torsion angle in general. Each torsion angle can assume a value that belongs to a particular set of d possible values, as shown here. This means that we have to introduce a binary variable xik that is 1 if torsion angle θi is equal to the particular value θik, and 0 otherwise. We also need to introduce this constraint here, which basically tells you that among all the possible choices, among all the possible d choices that the torsion angle has, it has to pick just one of them. So that's why the sum of all the binary variables should, the binary variables should sum up to 1. Okay, our discretization in the angle also induces discretization on the sine and cosine function, as well on the sine square and the cosine square. What we get is, by using the same variables, we can write the sine and cosine as summation, where the function is evaluated only on the angle theta ik, multiplied by the the variable. Why we need that? Because our rotation matrices depends on sine and cosine square. This means that we, in this way, we are able to so our rotation matrix becomes a function of all the binary variables xik associated with the torsion angle theta I. Okay. The general form of the optimization function for our problem is the one shown in this slide. We have the first term, that is the hard constraint, and basically reproduces in optimization terms, in binary optimization terms, the hard constraint that we have seen before. The A term is a constant that modulates the strength of this hard constraint. The second term is the optimization term. So it is a maximization of the internal distances between fragments. So that's why there is the minus sign. In general, okay, we don't have immediately a HUBO from our formulation. So we don't have a quadratic optimization problem. Actually, it is an high order optimization problem. That's why we call it a HUBO problem. H stands for high order. This happens because, in general, if DAB, if the distance between fragment A, fragment B depends on M torsions, so M torsions belonging to the path that connect A and B, then the highest order that appears in the HUBO is 2M, okay? Let's say something more about the HUBO problem, the variables that we need in our HUBO. So in order to have a precision in describing the angle, the torsions of delta theta I, precision means a granularity of the angle defined by this delta theta I, then we need a number of variables for each torsion that is equal to D. D is 2 pi over the precision over the granularity. In general, so given a molecule with M torsions, the total number of binary variables is going to be n, which is linear with the number of torsions. Okay, it's D times n. In our problem, in our research, we selected from the initial dataset molecules of this kind, molecules that had the number of atoms ranging from 20 up to 50 atoms, and up to 10 torsion, 10 rotational bonds. Okay, the precision, the granularity that we selected is pi over 4, so 45 degree for our test. And there is a specific reason behind this granularity. The reason is explained in this slide. So we knew from previous analysis on our dataset that the effect of the degradation by going from a granularity of 1 degree to 45 degree was not so high. So the degradation in the volume found when we consider a precision of 1 degree versus 45 degree is on average always below the 2%, okay, for the most part of the dataset. The dataset is on the x-axis, there are the molecules ordered from smaller smallest one to the one with the highest volumes. Okay, so only for a small set of molecules we have a degradation that is higher than 2%, but again not lower than the 4%. Again, okay, one could ask, is it okay to use this kind of degradation for our problem? Actually, we have seen that even with a degradation of this kind, it is always better than the initial situation when everything is folded instead. Okay, and the unfolded configuration, even at 45 degrees, we get a volume gain, okay, with average 17%. Okay, now, okay, let's have a look at the HUBO problem structure when our precision on the angle is pi/4, 45 degrees. As we have seen before, the HUBO linear terms, which means the variables, the binary variables needed to write your HUBO, grow linearly with the problem size, with the number of torsions. So it's d times m. In our case, since we selected 45 degree, d means d is 8. So we split the interval 0 to pi into 8 parts, and the angles have this kind of granularity. So this means that the linear terms go from 16 for 2 torsion up to 8 for 64. The case of higher order term is much more complicated than linear terms, because we have an exponential increase in number of higher order terms. Basically, what we did to mitigate the effect of this explosion was to introduce an approximation. Our approximation works in the following way. So we deleted the HUBO terms that were below, in absolute values, below a certain threshold. Okay, as you can see, the thresholds are depicted on the right by using the colors. So we have a threshold of 0.1, of 30, of 60. In this way, as I said before, we are able to write in a reasonable amount of time the HUBOs that we need. So this approximation is used in two steps. The first one is the one that we have discussed now, which is the speed up in order to speed up the computation, the construction of the HUBOs. The same approximation is applied also in a second stage when we want to transform the HUBOs into QUBOs in order to speed up also that transformation. That is basically done using this function, this main quadratic function available in the Wave libraries, Python libraries. And with the objective of basically obtaining an approximated HUBO whose dimension is small enough to be solvable, natively solvable by the DWAY 2000 and advantage. Okay, and in the next slide we see exactly this result. So we have we go from HUBOs to QUBOs, and we see how the number of linear terms and quadratic terms grow, changing, so increasing the number of torsion, so the number of rotatable bonds considered for the molecules, but also varying this threshold that we informally call the CHOP. Okay, as you can see here, by fixing the threshold, so by looking at columns with the same color, you always increase, you have an increase in the number of terms, and this works for linear, both for the linear and the quadratic terms. Instead, if you fix the number of torsions, for example here 6, you usually have, in general, you have a decrease in the number of terms by increasing the threshold. There are some exceptions, like this one, like 8 number quadratic terms when you have 8 going from threshold 100 to 200, and that's because for most of the molecules into that fall into this green category here are the threshold at 100 was too low, so we weren't able to deal with those kind of molecules if the threshold was too low. So that's why this column here is high. Okay, now we have the HUBOs for our data set. What are we going to do is to embed at first the problems into the architecture, the wave architecture. We have the 2000Q and with the Chimera topology, and the advantage with the Pegasus more connected topology. As you can see here, briefly, we have seen an increase again in both in the total number of qubits needed to represent the same problem, but also in the average maximum chain length that appears in the embedding. In both cases, we have a gain of 50%, more or less, going from the wave to the new generation advantage device. Okay, let's now have a look at some of the results. Okay, here we plot the volume gain, which means the maximum volume found by each one of these methods that we have: simulated annealing, random advantage 2000Q, and geodoc. So simulated annealing advantage and 2000Q are HUBO solvers, I mean HUBO solvers. Run and geodoc solve the problem in a different way, as Kevin explained. So they do not solve the HUBO, but the original problem instead. Okay, here, so as I said before, we plot the maximal volume in time. Time means computational time needed, expressed in seconds. We can see that simulated annealing works well. It's able to find a pretty good solution, about 90% of the optimal solution in less than 5 seconds. Then there is the random approach that also works well. Advantage, that is always the best one of the wave devices. Starts slow, but then after in less than 25 seconds, is able to get the best solution with overall. Okay, so we've seen that the wave, the quantum annealers work well up to 4 torsions. Then there are some physical limitations that start to that enters in play, and we have a decrease in the performances for what concerns the times in second, the computational time in second. Here we have 6 torsions. In this other plot here, we have 8 torsions. As you can see, the simulated annealing, so the classical approaches are more stable. And as I said before, since we are comparing classical with quantum, and the time is expressed in second, this decrease in performance for advantage and 2000Q is due to the fact that we have some access time. No, we have a total access time that is not just computational time; is programming time, annealing time, readout time, delay time that enters in play and slows everything down, increasing the number of torsions. Okay, so what we thought is the following. Okay, maybe this kind of plot is more coming from for those that is more a plot that use people coming from HPC. That have an HPC background, okay, in order to evaluate performances. But in our case, we wanted to see how the wave performs with respect to the simulated annealing, that basically is one of the best classical approaches here. For what concern time to solution, that is more a more let's say annealing prone metric. When time to solution is the total execution time, so divided by the number of occurrences of the best solution found by that method. This is log scale, and basically advantage and simulated annealing are very close, and 2000Q is pretty far from these other two that perform quite well. Simulated annealing again is a better time to solution. Again, no, I mean here in time to solution, the lower the better, because time to solution basically measures how long do you have to wait before you get an optimal solution on average. Okay, it's this kind of average time, and the less you have to wait, the better. So that's why simulating annealing is better. For what concern instead the volume gain, so the quality of the solution, we have that the plot on the right. Here, as you can see, advantage performs well, very well, up to four torsions, as we have also seen in the previous slides for the absolute. So for the volume gain in computational time expressed in seconds. But then after four torsions, the two start to diverge, and simulated annealing is able to stay in the 90% 100 regime, okay, for what concerns the quality of the solution. So here again, instead the higher the better. Advantage instead falls to the 70% regime, while 2000Q is fails most of the fails to find a good solution for 8 and 6 number of torsion, for problems with the 6 and 8 number of torsions. Okay, as you can see here, there is a very good, I mean, the improvement from going from 2000Q to advantage is enormous, and we approach the simulated annealing that works very well. However, okay, we have again, in these two plots, we have seen two things. The time to solution, that is measure of time to get a solution. Then the quality, the volume gain is a measure of the quality of the solution. And we ask ourselves, how can we combine these two and get something meaningful? We came up with a metric that we call normalized volume gain per TTS. That is basically the ratio between the two that we have seen before, and takes into account both the quality of the solution and the time to solution. And basically is something like a velocity. And measure how fast the method fails to provide a good solution. So in this case, being this something like a velocity, the higher the better. So, and we have seen that, and as you can see, the advantage is able to have a higher normalized volume gain per TTS with respect to the other two, increasing the number of torsions. The 2000Q basically is always going down, increasing the number of torsions, while advantage and simulated annealing seem to reach a stable, stationary state somehow. So being this kind of metric similar to velocity, so what we thought could be interesting was to measure the slope. So it's something like the deceleration that the three methods had, increasing the number of the problem side. You know, so how much the methods slow down. And we have seen that the advantage actually has a lower slope, so lower average slope, lower deceleration with respect to 2002, of course, and with respect, but also with respect to simulated annealing. and the average slope are shown here in the table. And this is, I mean, a promising result for us, because this means that because of two main reasons, because the improvement going from the previous generation to the new generation of the wave devices was really big. I mean, it outperforms the 2000Q in all the metrics that we consider advantage. But also it is a promising result, what we've seen in this metric, because of the future development of the wave devices that could increase its performance by, for example, increasing the quality of the sampling, or also lowering the time taken by the annealer for the computational time, the total access time on the annealer. No? Okay, I think that we can draw our conclusions and make a recap. In this project, we tackle the problem of molecular unfolding, which is an important step in docking, which again is essentially computation, the essential part in the drug discovery process. We gave a formulation first as a HUBO, then again as a CUBO for this kind of problem, and we were able to solve it using the wave annealers, increasing the problem size, as well as using other classical approaches like simulated annealing and random and geodoc. Okay, we introduced also the approximation technique that enable us to solve problems that couldn't be embeddable otherwise. And the approximation, and I mean, we came up with this approximation that preserves the, let's say, the doesn't mess up the HUBO, okay? But just lowers, decreases the number of non-relevant terms in the HUBO. For all concerned the performances, we have the embedding. For the embedding, as we have seen, the advantage compared to 2000Q cost 50% less, both in terms of physical qubit and in terms of length of the chains. For what concerns instead the volume obtained, the maximum volume obtained in time, computational time expressed in seconds, simulated annealing at the end is the fastest method that provide fast, after a few seconds, a close to optimal solution, on average around 90%. And we have seen that advantage is good up to for small problems up to 4. It's very good up to 4 rotables. Then we have some latency in the device that start to enter and decrease in performance with respect to the classical methods. Finally, we just consider the annealers, and I mean the annealing approaches, quantum and simulated, for which we could calculate the time to solution and the volume gain. We have seen that simulated annealing is very good. The advantage is approaching the simulated annealing, and significantly outperforms the Wave 2000 in terms of TTS and volume gain. The most promising part was this new metric. Was related to this new metric, the normalized volume gain over TTS, which is the measure of the velocity of the algorithm, also considering the quality of the solution. And we've seen that advantage as a better slope with respect to 2002, of course, but also with respect to simulated annealing. And that's the, one promising result, considering also future development of D-Wave devices. Okay, I think that's it from our side. And thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Ricardo, very much. A few things before we get to some questions. So if you're interested in learning more, if you go to our website, dwavesys.com, we have a number of resources available from a business perspective and for developers. There's a lot of content out there. If you're not already signed up for LEAP, we encourage you to do so. You can get free time on the system, plus there's a lot of informational and educational information once you get into LEAP. So take a look at the sign up for LEAP page. In addition, if you've got a project in mind and you're looking for some help from D-Wave, we have a program called the D-Wave Launch Program, where we can help you identify the problems best suited that should get benefits from using the D-Wave system. And you can take a look at the D-Wave Launch page on our website as well. So with that, we've answered many questions. We will answer as many as we can get to in the next 8 minutes. And then for those questions that we don't have time for, we will get back to the person who asked the question over email. So we'll start from the top. Kevin, if you want to come back online, and Gianluca as well, if you'd like, and Daniele. So we have a question on slide 12. Kevin showed a grid of TH1 versus TH2. The values of are the values of TH1 and TH2 discretized, and how fine is the mesh?
Well, yes, they are discretized because we are using these discrete angles for rotating our rotatable bonds. And actually we have, since we decided to use a granularity of 45 degrees, we just have, in the case of 2 rotatable bonds, it's just an 8x8. But as you increase the number of rotatables, you can guess that you are getting 8 to the D dimensions. So after I tried myself, and after 5 rotatable bonds, it's starting to become a little bit complicated trying to solve it, not in a parallel way. Okay. I hope I answered.
Next question, is there any place where we can see the code?
Not yet. Maybe you can check my GitHub for the geodoc-like code, which is a Python code that I implemented for myself, just to be sure that what I was doing was correct. But we don't have any code yet, like formal code yet.
Okay. Did not explain, why are they trying to maximize the volume of the molecule? How is this useful to docking?
I think that I can take this question. Well, this, the question is related to the flow that Kevin presented at the beginning of the slides. This is a trick that it's not a usual step in docking, but this is a trick that we are using in our docking algorithm. Because what we are doing for our docking algorithm is to try to use, we are using some geometrical scoring function that are proxy of the actual interactions that there are between the target and the small molecules. And the expansion of the molecules, that is the work that has been presented today, is needed because otherwise the quality of the results at the end of the docking was not sufficient. So it is needed. So it is a trick that we have to use in order to find a quick and good solution for the next docking phase. So you have to imagine that the docking algorithm that we implemented after this expansion phase is capable to dock around more than 100 ligands per second. Okay, and this is a very big number with respect to state-of-the-art docking algorithms.
Okay, next question. You're using 4 binary variables by rotatable bond to get 4 angles. Why not use a binary encoding that could give you 16 angles with the same number of binary variables?
Okay, if you want, I can answer that. The fact is that in the beginning, we adopted this solution. We used all the possible qubits, the values of the qubits to represent an angle, but it turns out that the HUBO problem was very, very difficult to solve with this solution, and we adopted this other method to create a more feasible HUBO problem.
Okay. How long does the conversion from HUBO to CUBO usually take in your case? Have you encountered cases, for example, the number of atoms, where that wasn't possible anymore due to time or complexity?
Well, I can answer this. This was a big problem in our project, but I think it's mainly due to the fact that we used symbolic computing, and well, we didn't spend much time in writing C++ code on purpose for this problem. I guess that if we did, we would solve this problem very easily.
Okay, so given the results, what is the benefit of using the quantum annealer?
Okay, maybe I can answer this question. Well, right now, as we have seen in the last slides, the quantum annealing performs well for small molecules up to 4 rotables. Okay, the performances are similar to those found for the classical methods. In perspective, okay, by looking at the future, we think that the approach is how to say, it's so it can give us I mean, the future development of the device can give us better results, and by looking at the score, the metrics that we have considered, like the one here, we hope that future development will increase also the total. I mean, we reduce the computational time and increase the volume gain. Okay, so it's a perspective thing. Okay, for number of rotables greater than 4.
Okay, and I think we'll just have one last question here. Can you clarify what RAND methodology was when comparing time versus volume expansion? Kevin, you're on mute.
Could you repeat the question, please? I didn't actually understand it.
Yeah, well, I may not be reading it correctly, but can you clarify what RAN or RAN methodology was when comparing time versus volume expansion?
Well, it's the random search, if this is the question, but I don't know if...
Okay.
Yeah, it's the random search.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, since I had many questions regarding this random search, that well, you can see that it's performing pretty well, but it makes it the most unfeasible solution, since we gave too many resources to achieve these results with the random search. It was just a way to show some other metric and to try to locate the quantum annealers in the spectrum of the classical methods.
Okay, well, we're out of time. I think just one other thing I wanted to mention. So for those Italian universities affiliated with Cineca, you can reach out to Daniele. It's d.ottaviani@cineca.com. It's kind of small behind him. Or if you just send an email to sales@dwavesys.com, I'll receive it and can pass it on. Also, I understand that there's a paper that the team is working on, which will be published. Gianluca or Daniele, if you want to say something about that, so people can have an expectation of time frame for that.
Yes, I can say something. I mean, We started writing the paper, so we stopped because we wanted to collect the final results that we just collected before the seminar. So those are the actual really final results that we collected in the last weeks, and we are finalizing it. So in the next period we are finalizing it. So if you can reach us, one of us, by email, we are going to share it with you in the next weeks.
Great.
So as soon as we finalize the writing.
Well, I'd like to thank so much all of our speakers today. And for everyone else, we do webinars monthly. You'll be receiving an email from us in the next week with links to both the slides that we will post as well as the YouTube recording. We thank you very much for your time and we hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.